Right now at noon, UW Health and Blue Cross Blue Shield give their members a bit more coverage as they work out a long-term deal. How long the new extension will last. Plus, the EU announces retaliatory actions after President Trump's new tariffs on all imported aluminum and steel. How it could impact costs to consumers. This is News 3 Now at noon. Thanks for joining us. I'm Josh Breiter. New developments on the investigation into nearly 200 ballots going uncounted in November's election. Madison City Clerk Maribeth Witzelbell is now on administrative leave. A preliminary investigation into the incident by the Wisconsin Elections Commission did not determine if Witzelbell abused her discretion as clerk or failed to follow state law. City Attorney Michael Haas will take over as city clerk on an interim basis. Haas previously served as administrator and legal counsel to the Wisconsin Elections Commission. UW Health and Blue Cross Blue Shield have reached an extension as both work towards a new long-term contract. The current agreement was set to expire in April. The extension will last through July 1st. It allows all Anthem Health Plan members to continue receiving in-network coverage at UW Health. Anthem members with any questions may contact them using the Sydney Health app or by calling the number on their ID card. The lead veterinarian and facility manager of Ridglan Farms dog breeding facility will keep his license. Richard Vandelomen has been the staff veterinarian at Ridglan Farms since 2006. He, along with the farm, have been publicly criticized for years. That's because of claims made by animal rights activists and former employees. Both sides were discussed at yesterday's hearing. A Wisconsin government efficiency committee modeled after Elon Musk's Doge met at the state capitol for the first time. The committee, known as Government Operations Accountability and Transparency, or GOAT, looked into the efficiency of remote work. It comes nearly 5 years since the state was shut down due to the COVID pandemic. It includes testimony from state agency, K-12, and the university system. The Department of Public Instruction says the advances in remote work allows them to have a broader geographic presence in Wisconsin.
We can send a staff who is maybe located in, say, Brown County or Southeast, Kenosha, Racine, Milwaukee County to interface with the school based on their job a lot easier and a lot cheaper than we can sending them from Madison in a fleet car driving back and forth.
Republicans floated the idea of requiring state workers to come back into the office earlier this year. Governor Evers says he would not sign the legislation if it comes to him. The EU and Canada have announced retaliatory tariffs. This follows new U.S. tariffs that took effect overnight on imported steel and aluminum. It comes as the Trump administration is also cutting the Department of Education by nearly half. Natalie Brand is at the White House.
President Trump is meeting with the Taoiseach of Ireland today. It comes as the European Union announced it's punching back against new 25% U.S. tariffs on all steel and aluminum imports. The EU says it will impose new duties on U.S. goods, including textiles and agricultural products.
Tariffs are taxes. They are bad for business and worse for consumers.
Imports account for an estimated 25% of steel and about half of aluminum used in the U.S., while the producers of those metals are applauding the president's new tariffs to spur domestic production. Other industries are bracing for increased costs. Jim Tobin is the CEO of the National Association of Home Builders.
We've seen some estimates that say that it could be up to $10,000 per home that these tariffs could increase the cost. But we're waiting to see. It's still going to be months before these tariffs truly find their bite and we see the impacts.
The administration is also moving forward with slashing the Department of Education, announcing plans to cut the workforce by nearly 50%. Among the more than 1,300 employees who received layoff notices Tuesday, Dallas-based civil rights lawyer Brittany Coleman, who's also an Education Department employee union leader.
It's very disappointing to know that the work that we do to try to help our students get great educational opportunities was not valued.
The Department of Education says it will continue to deliver programs including student loans, Pell Grants, and funding for special needs students. Teachers groups have slammed the cuts. The National Education Association says the real victims will be the most vulnerable students. Natalie Brand, CBS News, the White House.
The department says affected staff would be placed on leave starting Friday, March 21st, and will receive full pay and benefits until June 9th, in addition to severance and retirement benefits. Well, federal funding cuts could pose a problem for many of Madison's city projects. The city relies on federal funding for large-scale city planning and development projects. Plans affected by potential funding cuts include the second bus rapid transit route, affordable housing, and clean energy projects. Madison's finance director says the projects would be impossible without federal help.
Major infrastructure projects sometimes are beyond the capacity of local governments. The expectation is that those dollars will come through.
The officials say if any cuts were to happen, the consequences would be difficult to bounce back from. The state assembly is considering a bill that would bar transgender athletes from playing college sports. The GOP-backed bill would assign UW and technical college sports teams based on the sex of the participants, which is the sex established by a physician at birth. The bill also bans trans women or students assigned male at birth from using women's locker rooms. The governor can veto the bill if it makes it past the Assembly and the Senate. He has done so with similar bills in the past. UW-Madison is one of 60 universities receiving notice from the Department of Education for failing to protect Jewish students. Department officials say they will enforce actions if the institutions don't fulfill their obligations found under Title VI, which protects Jewish students on campus. UW-Madison is the only university in the Wisconsin system to receive this letter. Now, this comes as protests are spreading across the country after the Trump administration arrested a pro-Palestinian activist from Columbia University. Today, Mohammed Khalil will have his initial hearing in New York. A group of 14 House Democrats signed a letter to the Homeland Security Secretary calling for Khalil to be released. The White House says Khalil's arrest is the first of many. They say they will detain more people connected with last year's protest around the Israel-Hamas war.
They're trying to scare students into silence and into repression, and we're here to show that we're not scared.
A federal judge ordered the administration not to deport Khalil until the court reviews the case. Now, a first check of your first warned weather. Meteorologist Blaze Keller has your certified most accurate forecast. He's out on the weather patio. Hi, Blaze.
Hello. Got the light jacket on. I probably don't even need that, but you know, sometimes there's just a little bit of a breeze and it's still a little bit on the cooler side compared to maybe where we will be later this afternoon. But all eyes are on that chance for some severe weather as we head into your Friday night into early Saturday. That's when we have alert day conditions present over southern Wisconsin. Most of our coverage area underneath a slight risk, so the second lowest of the risk categories outlined by the Storm Prediction Center. But still, that means that we could probably see 1 to 2, maybe a few severe thunderstorms, not necessarily widespread. So Future Track has that line of showers and thunderstorms beginning in Iowa, moving into southwestern Wisconsin as we go into that 9, 10, 11 o'clock time frame Friday night and continuing as we cross over the midnight hour going into Saturday. The good news is, and we'll dive more into this in the full forecast, while we have a lot of ingredients, it's still very early in the severe weather season, so we might only just see 1 or 2 compared to some of our friends further to the south. In the meantime, 40s across southern Wisconsin. It is beautiful. We're nearing 50 in some spots out near Boscobel. It's 46 in Cross Plains, 46 in Sauk City, 44 in Madison. So again, we are set for a very beautiful day across southern Wisconsin. We'll dive more into Friday's severe weather forecast in just a few minutes.
Right, Blaze. We'll see you then. Thank you. Happening today, the West High School Civics Club is hosting a town hall style event with Dr. Jill Underly, the incumbent superintendent of public instruction. Students hosted a similar event with the U.S. Senate candidates in October. Some topics they will discuss is the need for equity in education and Underly's campaign for re-election. The event is moderated and organized by students. The goal is to provide voting age students insight on one of their choices on April 1st. The Brewers are coming to WISC-TV and Television Wisconsin. Morgan Murphy Media is partnering with the Crew and Good Karma brands to bring you 13 Brewers games in Madison. In addition to 10 regular season games, we will also be airing 3 spring training games. The first game is scheduled for this Saturday when the Brewers take on the LA Angels. First pitch is at 3:10. After spring training, we'll be broadcasting the home opener against Kansas City on Monday, March 31st. Still ahead for us on a Wednesday afternoon, the clock is ticking for Congress to send a spending bill to the president's desk, plus why Southwest Airlines is facing blowback over the decision to end their free checked bag policy.
President Donald Trump pulled back on his threat to double steel and aluminum tariffs on Canada from 25 to 50%. The move came after the Premier of Ontario, Canada, suspended his 25% surcharge on electricity exports to the U.S. The White House says the 25% tariffs on those metals from Canada and other countries are still set to kick in today. The clock is ticking for Congress to send a spending bill to the president's desk in order to avert a partial government shutdown this Friday. The GOP-led House narrowly approved a continuing resolution to maintain spending levels yesterday, sending the bill over to the Senate, where it must get 60 votes to pass. And Southwest Airlines is facing some blowback over its decision to end its free checked bag policy starting on May 28th. Frequent flyers took their complaints to social media yesterday. One airline analyst told CBS News, quote, "This is how you destroy a brand." Southwest has been under pressure from its investors to increase financial performance. The airline's rewards members, credit card holders, and those who book certain premium business seating will still be able to get up to 2 bags checked free after the new policy takes effect. That's your CBS News Money Watch report. For more, log on to cbsmoneywatch.com. At the CBS Broadcast Center, I'm Jesse Mitchell.
Here's a look at the stock market at the noon hour. The Dow was down 83 points, NASDAQ up to 10, and the S&P 500 up 38. Our Call for Action volunteers are in the building taking your consumer complaints and taking action on your behalf. Call for action at 608-270-2833 or submit a claim anytime at channel3000.com/call-for-action. We have today's farm numbers ahead, and Blaze returns with the first warn forecast, and later on Live at 4. The loophole that allows a massive donation from billionaires into the Wisconsin Supreme Court race. Pam Yankee is out of the radio barn this afternoon, so here are your farm numbers. On the Consumer Watch, for the first time in 4 months, inflation in the U.S. has cooled off. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the Consumer Price Index was 2.8% for the year-long period that ended in February. That is down from the 3% yearly rate reported in January. Economists say lower gas and grocery prices were major factors that helped bring down inflation. However, the Trump administration's trade war could cause consumer costs to rise in the near future. We are warming things up over the next few days with storm chances brewing later this week. First Warn meteorologist Blaze Keller is tracking it all for us. Hi, Blaze.
Hello. Yes, we are set to climb into those 70s by Friday, but as we end Friday going into Saturday with that heat, we are going to add our first chance for some severe weather of our season. That's set to arrive possibly on Friday. In the meantime, today, quiet and sunny. Tomorrow, partly sunny to mostly sunny and warm once again. We mentioned this earlier in the newscast. We do have that alert day for Friday night into Saturday for all of southern Wisconsin for the chance for 1 or 2 severe thunderstorms with mainly strong winds as the greatest threat, but we can't rule out an isolated tornado either. Now, all of our coverage area for the most part is underneath a slight risk or a marginal risk for severe weather, the 2 lowest threat categories outlined by the Storm Prediction Center. If we zoom this out, we can see a large portion of the Mississippi River Valley stretching from essentially Dubuque all the way south into northern Louisiana underneath what we call an enhanced risk for severe weather, where the ingredients and the atmospheric setup is a little bit better for severe weather to our south. But we're still not out of that severe weather threat. The marginal threat for severe weather extending as far north as Minneapolis. As this next low pressure system moves out of the plains into the Midwest, essentially moving through Wisconsin. So let's jump ahead to your Friday afternoon. Friday, for the most part, is going to be quiet. It's going to be windy, though. So get out and enjoy it. We're expecting temperatures to get into those upper 60s, if not the low 70s. And if we didn't get into the 70s on Monday, we certainly have that chance as we head into your Friday. Looking at 10:30 at night on Friday, those showers and thunderstorms that will develop out in Iowa, beginning to move into southwestern Wisconsin. These are when they'll likely be severe, and then they'll be quickly diminishing or weakening as we go overnight into the early morning hours on Saturday. So again, we're looking at about 10:30 at night for that line of showers and thunderstorms to move into parts of Vernon County, Crawford, Grant County as well. These will be bringing with them the severe weather threat, and they may hold into more of Sauk, Iowa, Lafayette counties as well. But as we go overnight into the early morning hours on Saturday, they really quickly will fall apart. Because we're so early on in the season, they really need the sunlight to help them. There's atmospheric energy for them to use as well, but once that sun goes down, these storms are very quickly going to weaken. So the darker the reds mean less energy, and if we get into the yellows and the whites, that's a lot of energy. So if we jump this ahead to 10:30 as those storms are moving on in, there's not a lot of energy for these storms to use. And if we look at the supercell chance, so those rotating thunderstorms that we usually associate with tornadoes, it peaks into parts of Iowa as we go into the late afternoon. But by the time we go into that time frame when those storms are moving through parts of Wisconsin, it's really not there. The supercell chance, it's very low. The whites indicating very low across parts of southern Wisconsin, which is some good news. The other thing that the National Weather Service and we've been kind of agreeing on here at News 3 Now is there's not a lot of moisture for these storms to use. Ideally, I would really want these dew points to be in the 60s for that severe weather chance. So the lesser that they are, the better chance we're going to have of maybe 1 or 2 severe thunderstorms. Hopefully cuts down on that isolated tornado threat. But because of how this low pressure system is moving, we saw kind of that bowing out of that line of storms out of Iowa. Strong winds are definitely going to be the greatest threat, but we can't rule out an isolated tornado as well as some small hail as well. So stay with News 3 Now. We will keep you updated. Of course, this is going to be Friday night into Saturday, so definitely make sure that you have a way to receive weather alerts. You can get that by downloading our weather app. We will be a little bit cooler on Sunday, but then we're back into the 50s for your St. Patrick's Day.
All right, Blaze, thank you. Let's see what Howard's working on in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen.
If you like your onion rings to crunch a bunch, grab your appetite and a cold drink and join us right here in the Test Kitchen. When it comes to onion rings, it seems that they're either really good or really bad, but never in between. Well, since I'm an onion ring lover, we set out to come up with a recipe that's not just really good, but one that's exceptional, especially if you love them crispy crunchy. We started by peeling 3 to 4 large Spanish onions and cutting them into thick slices, I would say about 1/3 of an inch thick. After separating them into rings, we coat them with buttermilk and let them soak. Next, we mix together our batter, which is simply some flour, baking powder, salt, and a little cayenne pepper. To that, we add vegetable oil, a splash of lemon juice, an egg, and a bit of water. Now we shake the excess buttermilk off each onion ring and dip it into the batter before carefully placing it into some hot oil. The oil should be hot, but not smoking. That way, it's hot enough to cook them, but not so hot that they burn. Once they're golden on both sides, we take them out and let them drain on some paper towels. This way they won't be too greasy. And that's all there is to it. So if you like an onion ring that has lots of flavor and is so crunchy it can be heard across the room, you're gonna love these. I really do hope you'll go online and get the recipe for our crispy buttermilk onion rings, which in my opinion are a hands down winner. I'm Howard of the Mr. Food Test Kitchen, where today we found a crunchy way for you to say, ooh, it's so good.
Blaze has a final check of the forecast.
And again, we are tracking those alert day conditions for your Friday overnight into Saturday. We have our first chance for severe weather of the severe weather season. So make sure to stay with News 3 Now for the latest. Rain on Sunday, dry for St. Patrick's Day.
We'll see you at 4.